Creationists believe that all present kinds of animals and plants have remained fixed since creation, which means evolution does not exist, partly because of the absence of transitional forms. With transitional forms, one means fossils or organisms that show the intermediate states between an ancestral form and its descendants. Creationists believe there is no such thing as transitional forms, since no fossils of these organisms have been found. A big issue is the definition of the word species itself. Humans like order, so we come up with systems of organization and classification. And one way we have done this is by creating different species. Species do not exist outside of the human mind. Nature has not divided itself up into such different groups. This means that transitional species is also nothing more than a contextual classification, which also means that yes, they do not really exist. At the same time, it is also correct to say that all species are transitional, which equals loads of transitional fossils. Simply because evolution does not have milestones, it is a continuous process without goals or endings. A lot of times what creationists, for example the evangelical spokesperson Kirk Cameron, ask for when they want proof for intermediate species, is parodies which evolution would not produce, since organisms like that most likely wouldn't be functional. Transitional species are not a blend of two species that currently exist, like a crocoduck, a duck with the head of a crocodile. Darwin said that if his theory was true, what should be found is a form potentially ancestral to both current species, with some similarities to both. With this definition, a lot of them have been found, where the most famous one was the Archaeopteryx, which indicates that birds have evolved from dinosaurs. Archaeopteryx was even mistaken for a dinosaur at one time. What evolutionary theory really predicts is that a common ancestor branched off and evolved into separate lineages, and these lineages continued to branch off and slowly develop, with small changes until they became today's life forms. Meaning, one should not expect to find a crocoduck swimming around in one's pond. Also, fossilization requires very unique environmental conditions, and most organisms decompose normally or are eaten by other organisms, and some groups of animals are never fossilized. Allopatric speciation occurs when a new species is developed, by a small part of the population somehow becomes isolated from the main group. Genetic changes can more easily spread in a small population, which leads to a more rapid change, which in turn can lead to a new species. Because of the small area these animals populate, it is no wonder few to no fossils are found from this speciation period, if there even are any. As stated earlier, fossilization is rare, but if an organism dies in or near water, it can be covered with, for example, mud and sand, and over thousands of years water deposits minerals in the organism's bones or teeth, which hardens the specimen. Other material can also entomb animals or plants, causing them to fossilize. But for the fossil to be discovered, erosion, shifting of landmass and so on must occur for the fossil to get to the Earth's surface so that it can be found. The very low probability of these scenarios to happen makes fossil findings very unique, which is the answer to the many gaps in the fossil records. In conclusion, the phrase transitional species is in itself a problem, since it is possible to say that they do not exist at the same time as all species are transitional because of the continuous process evolution is. Creationists often misunderstand the meaning of the word, which makes them doubt its existence. And lastly, fossilization is a very rare process which only happens to very few organisms, which leads to the many gaps in the fossil records.